Captain stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and stared at the impossible sight before him. The alien ship was massive, 3 times larger than any human vessel ever built. Its surface looked like living metal, flowing and shifting in patterns that hurt to watch for too long. The ship had appeared without warning at the edge of space, and now it just waited there, silent and still. "Still no response to our hails?" asked. His communications officer shook her head. "Nothing, sir, but they're not powering weapons either. They're just watching us." Doctor walked onto the bridge, her tablet clutched in her hands. As the ship's chief scientist, she had been studying the alien vessel for the past 6 hours. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they sparkled with excitement. "Captain, I've analyzed their hull composition. The materials they're using shouldn't exist according to our understanding of physics. That ship is old. I mean really old. Older than human civilization by millions of years." Felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. They had explored dozens of systems, found ancient ruins and dead worlds, but never encountered another living species. Until now. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer suddenly announced. "On screen," ordered. The flickered to life. The creature that appeared made several crew members gasp. It looked vaguely humanoid, but its skin was pale gray and seemed to shimmer like water. Its eyes were enormous, completely black, without any visible iris or pupil. It wore robes that seemed to be made from the same living metal as its ship. "I am elder of the alien said. Its voice was strange, like multiple voices speaking in harmony. "We come in peace. We request a meeting with your leaders." Straightened his uniform. "I am captain of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We welcome peaceful contact. What brings you to our space?" His expression was difficult to read, but something in those black eyes seemed almost sad. "You do, Captain, your species. We must speak privately. It is a matter of great importance." 2 hours later, and sat across from Elder in the ship's conference room. The alien had come alone, which found both brave and strange. Moved slowly, carefully, as if every gesture was considered. "How long have you been watching us?" asked, unable to contain her curiosity. 43 of your years," replied. "Since you first split the atom, we have sensors throughout this region of space. When we detected the energy signature, we knew you had arrived at a critical point in your development." "You've been watching us for 40 years and never made contact," felt a flash of anger. "Why now?" His long fingers tapped slowly on the table. "Because now you have left your home system. Now you are spreading, and we must give you a warning before it is too late." Leaned forward. "A warning about what?" "Stay within your current borders," said simply. "Do not expand further. Do not seek out other species. Remain isolated for your own safety and the safety of the galaxy." Shook his head. "That's not acceptable. Humanity has just begun to explore. We have a right to seek out new worlds, new knowledge. You can't ask us to cage ourselves." "I am not asking, Captain. I am begging." His voice carried a weight of emotion that surprised them both. "Your species is dangerous in ways you cannot imagine. You carry something within you, a trait we thought had been erased from the galaxy 200 million years ago, something my people barely survived." "What are you talking about?" demanded. "What trait?" Stood slowly, his robes flowing around him like liquid. "I cannot tell you. If I tell you, you may seek to unlock it. Better that it remains dormant, forgotten. Better that you live peaceful, short lives within your small corner of space." "And if we refuse?" asked, standing as well. "Then the cycle will begin again," whispered, "and we will all pay the price." The alien reached into his robes and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the table between them. "This contains the technical specifications for a power source far beyond your current capabilities. It will solve your energy crisis, allow you to terraform worlds, eliminate poverty and hunger. Consider it a gift. All we ask in return is that you use it to build a paradise within your current borders and go no further. Reached for the device but put his hand on her wrist, stopping her. He looked directly into his black eyes. We appreciate the offer, Elder, but we cannot accept it. Humanity will not be bought or frightened into isolation. We will explore the galaxy. We will seek out other species. We will do so peacefully, but we will not stop. Seemed to shrink, his shoulders sagging. Then you have doomed us all. Explain yourself, demanded. Tell us what you're so afraid of. The alien moved toward the door, then paused. He turned back, and for the first time his alien face showed an emotion they could recognize. Fear. Your people have no memory of what you once were. 200 million years is a long time, long enough to forget everything. But the galaxy remembers. We remember. And we barely survived the last time your kind walked among the stars. Our kind stood up. What does that mean? Humans have only existed for a few 100,000 years. His hand touched the door control. That is what you believe. That is what your own history tells you. But history can be rewritten. Evolution can be guided. And sometimes the most dangerous species chooses to forget itself. Wait, moved toward him. You can't just drop hints and leave. Tell us the truth. The truth will reveal itself soon enough, said. You have chosen your path. Within a year, other species will find you. They will invite you to join them. They will seem friendly. But when they scan your biology, when they see what lies dormant in your cells, they will understand what we already know. And then you will have a choice to make. The door opened and stepped through. He looked back one final time. I hope for all our sakes that you choose wisely, but I fear you will choose as your ancestors did. You will choose to survive, and in surviving, you will become what we fear most. The door closed, and moments later, sensors showed the alien vessel departing at impossible speeds, and stood in the empty conference room, staring at the device on the table. What just happened? Finally asked. Shook his head. I don't know, but we're going to find out. He tapped his communicator. Bridge, set course for the Galactic Council coordinates we've been monitoring. It's time humanity introduced itself to the galaxy. As the horizon's edge turned toward the stars, neither of them noticed the small genetic scanner had left behind, hidden in the corner of the room. It transmitted one final message to the ship, a simple reading of human DNA that made Elder close his ancient eyes in despair. The genetic markers were a perfect match. After 200 million years, the predecessors had returned, and they had no idea what they truly were. Ambassador stood before the massive doors of the council chamber and tried to calm his racing heart. Behind those doors waited representatives from 47 different alien species, the gathered powers of the known galaxy. In his hand, he held a data pad with his prepared speech welcoming humanity to the galactic community. Beside him, Specialist adjusted her formal uniform for the 10th time. As an intelligence officer, she usually worked in shadows, gathering information and analyzing threats. Being here in the open, representing Earth, made her deeply uncomfortable. Ready? Asked with a smile. Not even a little bit, admitted. The doors opened. The chamber beyond was enormous, a circular room with seating arranged in rising tiers. Dozens of aliens turned to watch as the two humans entered. Some looked curious, others welcoming. But noticed that several of the oldest-looking species, seated in places of honor, watched with expressions he couldn't quite read. Not hostility exactly, but something like wariness. The session lasted 3 hours, presented humanity's case for joining the council. He spoke of Earth's desire for peaceful cooperation, mutual trade, and shared knowledge. Most species seemed receptive. The younger species, those who had only achieved space flight in the last few thousand years, were especially enthusiastic. But when the vote was called, 5 species voted against humanity's admission. All 5 were ancient species that, according to the data had gathered, had existed for over 100 million years. that were among them. Despite the opposition, humanity was accepted. The vote was 42 in favor, 5 against. As the chamber erupted in polite applause, noticed Elder in the section. The ancient alien simply sat there, unmoving, those black eyes fixed on the human delegation. After the ceremony, a young alien approached them. She was tall and slender, with blue-green skin and 4 arms. Her name was Counselor, and she represented a species called the "Congratulations on your acceptance," said warmly. "Don't worry about the old ones. They vote against everything new. They're afraid of change." "Thank you," replied. "We're honored to join the council." Leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "But between us, I'm curious about something. Why did the visit you before you came here? They never do first contact missions. They haven't left their home system in 10,000 years except for council meetings." Interest sharpened. "How did you know about that?" "Word travels fast in the council. They registered the encounter in official logs." Glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but if you want to know why the Ancient Ones are nervous about you, there are restricted archives in the lower levels. Records from before the council was founded. I can get you access." Later that night, found herself in the restricted archives section with as her guide. The young alien worked her access codes, and doors opened that should have remained sealed. "Why are you helping us?" asked. Smiled. "Because I'm tired of the old ones keeping secrets. The galaxy should be open and free, not locked behind ancient fears." She gestured to the data terminals. "I can give you 30 minutes before security notices. Make it count." His fingers flew across the controls, searching for anything related to humanity, Earth, or the ancient past. Most files were locked, but she found fragments. References to a species called the predecessors. Battle reports from 200 million years ago. Casualty numbers that made her stomach turn. One file caught her attention. It was labeled Final War Archive Biological Analysis. The file was corrupted, missing huge sections, but what remained made her blood run cold. The predecessors had possessed a unique trait. Their bodies could adapt to threats rapidly, evolving defenses within a single generation. Poison them and they became immune. Shoot them and their skin grew harder. Burn them and they became fireproof. They were the ultimate survivors, impossible to kill by conventional means. The galaxy had united against them. Billions died on both sides. The predecessors won every battle, grew stronger from every attack. The war only ended when the predecessors mysteriously vanished. No one knew how or why. They were simply gone, leaving behind dead worlds and traumatized species. Downloaded everything she could find and was about to leave when she heard footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps that echoed in the empty archive. High Archivist appeared from between the data stacks. He was older than if the deep lines on his gray skin were any indication. His black eyes fixed on with an intensity that made her want to run. "I knew someone would come looking eventually," said quietly. "I am only surprised it took you this long." Stepped forward. "Archivist, I take full responsibility. I gave her access." "I know, child. I've been watching you for the past hour." Moved closer to, "Show me what you found." With shaking hands, displayed the fragments about the predecessors. Read them slowly, his expression unreadable. "This is only a small part of the truth," he finally said. "The full records are locked behind encryption that would take centuries to break. But perhaps you should know. Perhaps the time for hiding is past." He touched the terminal and entered a code. New files appeared, unrestricted. Medical scans, genetic analyses, comparative biology studies. All focused on one thing, the predecessor's DNA structure. "When your captain met Elder, we took biological samples from your ship's air systems. Hair, skin cells, breath vapor. Standard first contact protocol." Pulled up a comparison screen. On one side was predecessor DNA. On the other was human DNA. The patterns matched. Not perfectly, but close enough that even could see the similarities. The same base structure, the same dormant genetic sequences, the same biological markers. "This is impossible," whispered. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have a complete fossil record going back millions of years." "Do you?" asked. "Or do you have a fossil record that appears complete? Evolution can be guided. Memories can be erased. A sufficiently advanced species could reset itself, start over with a clean slate." "You're saying humans are the predecessors." "I am saying you have their genetic legacy. Whether you are them, or their descendants, or something they became after 200 million years of hiding, I cannot say. But the markers do not lie. You carry the same adaptive trait in your DNA, locked behind biological safeguards that we barely understand." Felt dizzy. "Does the Council know?" "The ancient species know. The young ones do not. We have kept it secret, hoping you would never learn the truth, never unlock what sleeps within you. But Elder was right to be afraid. You are not content to remain in one place. You will explore, expand, encounter danger. And when you are threatened, your bodies will remember what your minds have forgotten." Looked between them, confused. "What are you talking about? What will happen?" Turned to her. "The predecessors nearly destroyed the galaxy because they could not be stopped. Every weapon we used made them stronger. Every poison we created they adapted to. They were evolution incarnate, survival made flesh. The war only ended when they chose to end themselves, to reset and forget. If that trait reactivates in humanity." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Thought fast. "We need to tell Earth. We need to warn them." "Warn them of what?" asked. "That they might be dangerous, that the galaxy fears them. That will only create panic and suspicion. Better to remain quiet, to study this carefully. Perhaps the safeguards will hold. Perhaps humanity will never face a threat severe enough to trigger the ancient responses. Or perhaps," a new voice said from the entrance, "humanity deserves to know the truth about themselves." Ambassador stood in the doorway. He had followed, worried about her late-night excursion. Now he stared at the comparison screens, his face pale. "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. "Since first contact," admitted. Elder recognized the signs immediately. He has studied the predecessors for most of his 12,000 years of life. He hoped to frighten you into isolation, to prevent what he sees as inevitable. Walked slowly to the terminal and studied the genetic comparisons. "We're not them. We're not the predecessors. We're humans. We've built a civilization based on cooperation, art, science, philosophy. We've had wars, yes, but we've also created beauty. We're not monsters." "The predecessors were not monsters either," said softly. "They were survivors. They evolved to survive any threat. The problem was that survival became their only trait. They couldn't stop adapting, couldn't stop evolving. Eventually, they became something beyond life as we understand it. That is what we fear. Not what you are now, but what you might become if the ancient programming activates." Looked at, then at, finally at. "I'm taking this information back to Earth. Our scientists need to study this. If we really have this trait in our DNA, we need to understand it before something triggers it." "That may be wise," agreed. "But know this, Ambassador. The moment Earth begins serious genetic research into your predecessor heritage, the entire galaxy will learn of it. And the young species, the ones who do not remember the final war, may see you as a threat to be eliminated while you are still weak." "Then we'll face that when it comes," said firmly. "Humanity will not hide from the truth about ourselves, even if that truth is terrifying." As they left the archives, none of them noticed the surveillance drone recording everything. On the other side of the galaxy, in a war council of a species called the military leaders watched the footage and began to plan. The predecessors had returned, and this time they would strike first, before the ancient enemy could awaken. Doctor stared at the genetic sequencing results for the 100th time and still couldn't believe what he was seeing. Around him, The Global Genetics Institute hummed with activity as hundreds of scientists worked around the clock. It had been 3 weeks since Ambassador returned from the Council with the shocking revelation about humanity's possible connection to the ancient predecessors. "These sections here," said, pointing at his screen. His colleague doctor leaned in to look. She had been reassigned from the horizon's edge to assist with the research. "They're dormant, locked behind genetic safeguards I've never seen before. It's like someone deliberately turned off parts of our DNA." Nodded slowly. "I've found similar patterns in samples from populations all over Earth. African, Asian, European, indigenous peoples from every continent. We all have these same dormant sequences. Whatever this is, it's universal to our species." Captain, now promoted to Admiral of Earth's Defense Fleet, stood nearby with his arms crossed. "Can you activate them? See what they do?" Shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. We have no idea what would happen. These sequences are clearly designed to remain inactive unless specific conditions are met. Triggering them artificially could be catastrophic." "What kind of conditions?" Admiral asked. She had entered the lab quietly, her military uniform crisp and formal. As the head of Earth's defense forces, she had been monitoring the research closely. "That's what we're trying to understand," explained. She brought up a new screen. "We've been analyzing human evolutionary history. The fossil record shows several unexplained leaps in human development, times when our ancestors seem to evolve much faster than natural selection should allow." She displayed a timeline. About 70,000 years ago, there was a volcanic eruption that nearly wiped out humanity. The population dropped to maybe 10,000 individuals. We should have gone extinct. Instead, within a few thousand years, humans spread across the entire world, adapting to every climate and environment. From frozen tundra to scorching deserts, we survived. "Rapid adaptation," said quietly. "Exactly, and it's not the only example." Continued through the timeline. "Every major climate change, every natural disaster, every pandemic. Humanity survived and adapted faster than we should have been able to. It's like the more threatened we were, the stronger we became." Pulled up another set of data. "I've also found something disturbing in Earth's fossil record. There are gaps, periods where we have almost no fossils from certain regions, as if the geological record was deliberately erased or altered. And those gaps coincide with some of Earth's mass extinction events." "Are you suggesting humans were here during the dinosaur extinction?" asked skeptically. "No, I'm suggesting that perhaps the predecessors were here millions of years ago, and when they decided to reset themselves, they might have cleaned up the evidence, left only enough genetic material to start over fresh as primitive mammals, eventually evolving into us." The lab fell silent. The implications were staggering. The quiet was broken by an alarm. His communicator buzzed urgently. She answered it, her face growing grim as she listened. "We have a situation," she announced. "3 of our colony worlds just detected massive fleet movements. The Empire and 5 allied species are moving warships into positions surrounding human space." His expression hardened. "How many ships?" "Over 2,000, replied. "They're not answering our hails, but they've made their intentions clear with a single broadcast to the entire galaxy." She played the recording. A commander, his reptilian face fierce with determination, spoke in heavily accented but clear human language. "The species called humanity has been identified as the inheritors of the predecessor threat. They carry the genetic markers of the galaxy's greatest enemy. We cannot allow them to awaken and repeat the horrors of the ancient past. The coalition will eliminate this threat while it is still contained. This is not war. This is extermination for the survival of all life." The recording ended. Felt sick. "They're going to attack us because of what we might become." "They're scared," said, "and fear makes people do terrible things." Was already on her communicator, calling up Earth's defense forces. All ships to alert status. Recall all civilian vessels to protected space. Prepare evacuation protocols for the outer colonies. Stopped her. Wait, how many ships do we have? 300 combat-capable vessels, admitted. We're outnumbered 6-1, and their technology is more advanced than ours. Then we can't win a straight fight, said. We need help. We need the Council to intervene. The next 48 hours were a blur of desperate diplomacy. Ambassador pleaded with the Galactic Council, but the vote to defend humanity failed. Too many species were afraid. Even those who sympathized with humanity's plight weren't willing to risk war with the coalition. The ancient species abstained from voting. Elder made a brief statement. We will not help humanity, but neither will we stand against them. This is between the young species and their fear. 3 days later, they attacked. The colony world of Horizon's Gate was hit first. Admiral commanded the defense from her flagship, the Earth's Pride, but her forces were quickly overwhelmed. The ships were faster, their weapons more powerful. Human ships exploded under the barrage. On the planet's surface, the bombardment began. Energy weapons struck population centers. Biological weapons were released into the atmosphere. They weren't trying to conquer. They were trying to exterminate. In an underground shelter, a young woman named huddled with hundreds of other civilians. She was just a teacher, someone who had come to Horizon's Gate to help establish schools for the colony's children. Now she held those same children as the world burned above them. The shelter's air systems failed when a bomb hit nearby. Toxic gas from the biological weapons began seeping in. People started choking, collapsing. Tried to help, but she could feel the poison entering her own lungs. Her vision blurred. This was it. This was how humanity ended. But then something strange happened. The burning in her lungs faded. Her vision cleared. She looked around and saw that she wasn't the only one. Other people were recovering too. Not everyone, but more than should have survived exposure to the toxin. On the surface, Commander fought a desperate battle. His special forces team was pinned down by ground troops. One of his soldiers, a corporal named Minyu, was hit by an energy weapon that should have killed him instantly. The blast burned through his armor and into his chest. Rushed to him, ready to call for a medic, but Minyu was still breathing, still conscious. The wound was healing before their eyes, the burned flesh regenerating at an impossible rate. Sir, Minyu gasped, what's happening to me? Had no answer, but around him he saw similar miracles. Soldiers surviving wounds that should be fatal, moving faster than humans should move, their bodies somehow adapting to the threats around them. In orbit, a damaged human frigate was drifting, its crew exposed to hard radiation from their failing reactor. The ship's doctor watched in amazement as radiation sickness symptoms appeared in the crew and then faded. Their bodies were somehow processing the radiation, becoming resistant to it. Back on Earth in the genetics lab, every alarm was screaming, and watched in horror as samples from the battlefront came in. Human DNA was changing. The dormant sequences were activating. It's happening, whispered. The threat triggered the response. We're evolving. Pulled up live medical data from Horizon's Gate. The colonists exposed to the bioweapons are developing immunity. Their bodies are adapting to the toxins. It's happening within hours, not generations. Admiral arrived in the lab, her uniform scorched from a shipboard fire. I need to know what's happening to our people. My soldiers are reporting abilities that shouldn't be possible. Showed her the data. The genetic safeguards are releasing. Humanity is becoming what they feared. The more they attack us, the stronger we become. Is this permanent? Asked. We don't know, admitted. We don't know if it will stop once the threat ends or if it will continue. We don't know if people will remain human or if they'll keep evolving into something else. Who had been coordinating the defense from Earth contacted them. His face on the screen looked haunted. I just received a report from Horizon's Gate. They deployed a weapon that creates a vacuum effect, exposing our troops to hard space. No suits, no protection. They should all be dead. And asked, though she already knew the answer. They survived. For about 3 minutes they survived vacuum exposure, long enough to get back to shelter. Their bodies somehow held together. It's impossible, but it happened. The lab fell silent again. They all understood what this meant. The war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about what humanity would become in order to survive. A transmission came through from Elder. The ancient alien's face appeared on screen, and for the first time he looked truly afraid. "You see now why we warned you," said. "This attack has triggered your ancient legacy. Every time they hurt you, you will grow stronger. Every weapon they use, you will adapt to. This is how the predecessor war began. Violence triggering evolution, triggering more violence. It is a cycle that ends only in extinction or ascension." "What do we do?" asked desperately. "That depends," replied, "on whether you want to remain human or become what you once were. The choice may already be out of your hands. Your bodies are remembering what your minds forgot. Evolution does not care about your wishes. It cares only about survival." The transmission ended. In the uncomfortable silence that followed, spoke quietly. "We need to end this war quickly, before we evolve beyond the point of return. Because if we become the predecessors again, we won't just be fighting we'll be fighting the entire galaxy. And this time, we might not choose to reset ourselves." Outside the lab, across human space, the war intensified. And with each battle, humanity changed a little more, becoming stronger, stranger, more dangerous. The hidden truth was revealing itself, one adaptation at a time. The war had been raging for 6 months, and humanity was winning. That fact terrified both sides. Commander crouched behind the ruins of what used to be a hospital on Horizon's gate. His team had been fighting the ground forces for weeks. They should have been exhausted, starving, defeated. Instead, they were stronger than ever. He watched Minu sprint across open ground, moving faster than any human athlete should move. Energy blasts from weapons tracked him but couldn't quite catch him. When one finally connected, Minu stumbled but didn't fall. The burn mark on his armor faded as his body repaired the damage beneath. "Sir, west flank is secured," Minu reported, barely breathing hard despite running for 3 kilometers at full speed. Nodded, trying not to think about how wrong this all was. His entire team was changing. They needed less sleep, healed faster, could go days without food if necessary. They kept throwing new weapons at them, and humanity kept adapting. A new soldier, fresh from Earth, stared at the veterans with a mixture of awe and fear. "Is it true you were exposed to vacuum last month?" "For about 4 minutes," confirmed. "Nearly killed us, but we survived long enough to reach shelter. Now some of the team can hold their breath for 30 minutes straight. Our bodies just keep adjusting." The new soldier looked sick. "What are we becoming?" Had no answer for that. In space, Admiral commanded a very different fleet than the one she started with. Human ships were still outnumbered, but they were no longer outmatched. Human engineers were designing new weapons based on technology they had captured. More importantly, human crews were somehow surviving situations that should kill them. A plasma torpedo struck the Earth's Pride, tearing through the hull, and her bridge crew were exposed to superheated gas for almost 30 seconds before emergency seals engaged. They all survived. Their skin was red and blistered, but healing even as she watched. "Damage report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the pain. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. Casualties minimal. Crew members are recovering from plasma exposure." Minimal casualties. That would have meant hundreds dead just months ago. Now it meant a few dozen injured who would be back to duty within hours. Her science officer, a young woman named, pulled up data on her console. "Admiral, I'm detecting a pattern. The more our crews are exposed to specific threats, the faster they adapt to those same threats later. It's like our bodies are learning and sharing that knowledge somehow. Sharing asked. Genetically, through some mechanism we don't understand yet. When one crew member develops resistance to something, others nearby start showing similar resistance within days. It's spreading through the fleet like an evolutionary virus. Felt cold despite the heat still radiating from the damaged sections. Are we even human anymore? Was quiet for a moment. We look human, we think like humans, but our bodies are definitely not following normal human biology anymore. On Earth, the genetics lab had become a war room. Doctor and doctor worked with military advisors, tracking the changes spreading through humanity. The activation is accelerating, explained, pointing at a galactic map. Red zones marked areas where human DNA changes were most pronounced. Horizon's Gate is completely red. Every human on that world is showing massive genetic adaptation. The soldiers on the front lines are changing fastest, but even civilians are affected. Admiral studied the map grimly. What about Earth? We haven't been directly attacked yet. Some changes, but minimal, replied. The adaptation seems to be triggered by direct threats. The more dangerous the situation, the stronger the response. A transmission came through from Horizon's Gate. The image showed the young teacher who had survived the biological attack, but she looked different now. Her eyes were sharper, her movements more fluid. She spoke with calm confidence that seemed almost unnatural. Doctor, we have a situation down here that you need to know about. The children, the ones who were exposed to the toxins, they're adapting faster than adults, much faster. Leaned forward, how much faster? A 10-year-old boy was exposed to a nerve agent 2 days ago. Yesterday he was unconscious. Today he's awake and testing shows his nervous system has completely rewired itself to filter the toxin. His reaction time is 3 times faster than it was before. Pulled up genetic data from the colony. The younger the person, the more plastic their DNA seems to be. Children's bodies are accepting the changes more readily than adults. That's terrifying, said. We're creating a generation of super soldiers without meaning to. They're not soldiers, said firmly. They're children who are trying to survive, and they're scared. Scared of the yes, but also scared of what they're becoming. I need guidance on how to help them. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. A new fleet had entered the system, bigger than any before. 2,000 ships, all converging on Horizon's Gate. They're going to destroy the planet, said, reading the tactical data. They can't beat us on the ground anymore, so they're going to burn the whole world. Received the evacuation order while his team was clearing a bunker. We need to get everyone to the transport ships. We have 6 hours before the orbital bombardment begins. But there wasn't enough transport capacity. Not for all the colonists, not for all the children. Gathered the kids in the underground shelter where they had survived the first attack. There were 37 of them, ranging from age 6 to 16. They looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. We can't all leave, she told them gently. But you can. The transports will take all children first. A girl named only 12 years old shook her head. If we leave, who will protect the people who have to stay? The soldiers will protect them, said. The soldiers are tired, another child said. We can feel it. We're connected somehow. We know they're running out of strength. Realized with shock that the boy was right. She could feel it too, like a background hum of consciousness linking all the adapted humans together. The soldiers were exhausted, their bodies pushed beyond even their new limits. We can help, said. We've changed more than the adults. We can do things they can't. Please let us help. Before could respond, the bombardment began early. The shelter shook as massive explosions struck the surface. The ceiling cracked, dust and debris rained down. And several other children ran toward the weakening support beams without hesitation. They held the beams in place, their small bodies somehow finding strength that shouldn't exist. Their muscles stood out like cables under their skin, bones that should break under the weight held firm. Watched in amazement as the children saved the shelter. But at what cost? They were changing faster now, their bodies responding to the immediate threat, growing stronger, denser, more resilient. More inhuman. In orbit made a desperate decision. All ships, ramming speed, were taking the fight directly to their fleet, make them focus on us instead of the planet. Her officers stared at her. Admiral, that's suicide. It's a chance for the colonists to evacuate. Launch all fighters, every pilot who can fly, buy them time. The human fleet charged forward. Ships exploded under fire, but the survivors kept coming. Human pilots ejected from destroyed fighters and survived in vacuum long enough to be rescued. Crew members exposed to radiation and energy weapons adapted and kept fighting. The Admiral watched the impossible sight of humans who refused to die. His confidence wavered. Every report said the same thing. The more they attacked these creatures, the stronger the humans became. He made the call to retreat, but his commanders refused. If we retreat, they will only grow stronger. We must finish this now, whatever the cost. The battle raged for 18 hours, the longest space engagement in galactic history. When it finally ended, the fleet was destroyed. 2,000 ships reduced to wreckage. But the human fleet was also shattered. Only 47 ships remained functional out of the 300 that had started. Yet somehow casualties were minimal. Humans kept surviving, kept adapting, kept winning. On Horizon's gate, stood among the ruins and watched the sun rise. His team was battered but alive. The colonists were safe. The children who had held up the shelter were resting, their bodies slowly returning to normal size as the threat passed. But they would never be truly normal again. None of them would. Minyu walked up beside him. "Sir, communications are coming in from across the galaxy. The coalition is in chaos. 5 of their allied species have withdrawn from the war. They're saying it's impossible to fight an enemy that evolves faster than you can kill them." "And the other species?" asked. Terrified, the Council is calling emergency sessions. The ancient species are demanding humanity be quarantined. The young species are arguing about whether to help us or destroy us. Minyu paused. "Sir, we're becoming the monsters they feared. Everything they warned us about is coming true." Looked at his hands. They looked normal now, but he remembered how they had changed during the battle. Stronger, faster, able to tear through armor like paper. The power had been intoxicating and terrifying. "Maybe," he said quietly, "or maybe we're becoming what we need to be to survive. The question is whether we can choose to stop changing once the threat is gone." A message arrived from Doctor. She had been analyzing the genetic data from the battles. "Commander, I need you to understand something. The adaptations are starting to stabilize in some people. Those who survived the early attacks and haven't faced new threats in weeks are showing signs of returning to baseline human DNA. The changes might be temporary if the threats stop." "Might be?" asked. "We don't have enough data yet, but there's hope. If we can end this war quickly, if we can stop being threatened, maybe we can stay human. Maybe we can choose not to become the predecessors." Looked up at the stars where the destroyed fleet drifted. "Then we need to end this war, not just win it. End it in a way that makes everyone feel safe, including us." But even as he said it, he could feel the changes still working inside him. His body remembering what his species had forgotten, and he wondered if it was already too late to go back. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives, and the gallery seats were filled with observers from across known space. Admiral stood with Ambassador, both wearing formal Earth uniforms. Beside them stood the teacher from Horizon's Gate, who had become a symbol of humanity's transformation. The chamber buzzed with fearful conversation. On massive screens, footage played from the final battle. humans surviving vacuum, humans adapting to weapons in real time, humans who should be dead but kept fighting. The ambassador, his reptilian face from battle, stood to speak. The coalition has surrendered. We attacked humanity to prevent the return of the predecessors. Instead, we triggered exactly what we feared. Every battle made them stronger. Every weapon we used, they learned to resist. We cannot fight evolution itself. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the younger species. But the ancient ones sat silent, their expressions unreadable. Counselor stood. The footage we've seen is alarming, but humanity won a defensive war. They were attacked without provocation. Their adaptations were survival responses, not acts of aggression. Survival responses that could destroy the galaxy, another counselor argued. The predecessors started the same way, defending themselves, but they couldn't stop evolving. They became something beyond life, beyond reason. They nearly ended all civilization. Elder rose slowly. The chamber fell silent. When the ancient spoke, his voice carried the weight of 200 million years ago. I was not yet born, but my ancestors lived through the predecessor war. They recorded everything, not just the battles, but the tragedy behind them. The predecessors did not want to destroy the galaxy. They only wanted to survive. But every time someone attacked them out of fear, they grew stronger. Every attempt to contain them made them more dangerous. It was a cycle fed by fear and violence. He turned his black eyes toward the human delegation. The question before us is not whether humans are the predecessors returned. The genetic evidence confirms they are the inheritors of that legacy. The question is whether we will repeat the same mistakes that led to the ancient war. Admiral entered the chamber, walking with measured steps. Her uniform bore marks of recent combat. She had commanded the defense of 3 human worlds in the past month alone. Behind her walked Commander and several of the soldiers who had fought on Horizon's Gate. "I am Admiral of Earth's Defense Forces," she announced. "I am here to present evidence that the Council must see." She activated a holographic display. Medical scans appeared, showing human genetic data over time. These are scans from soldiers who fought in the early battles. You can see the massive genetic changes, adaptations to energy weapons, toxins, radiation, vacuum exposure. The Council watched nervously. This was what they feared. "Now look at these scans," continued. "These are the same soldiers taken yesterday, 3 weeks after the last combat engagement." The genetic markers were fading. The adaptations were slowly revering. The soldiers' DNA was returning toward baseline human patterns. Doctor stepped forward to explain. "We've discovered something crucial about the predecessor legacy in human DNA. Yes, we carry the adaptive trait. Yes, it activates under extreme threat. But there's a safeguard built into the genetic structure. When the threat ends, the adaptations begin to deactivate. Our bodies want to return to being human." Doctor added, "We've been studying the original predecessor records that High Archivist provided. The predecessors couldn't stop evolving because they lived in constant warfare for millions of years. The threat never ended, so neither did their evolution. But if we can maintain peace, if we're not constantly attacked, the adaptive responses will fade." Stepped forward. Her appearance had been shocking when she first arrived at the Council station. Her eyes were too sharp, her movements too fluid. But now, just days later, she looked more normal, more human. "I want to show you something," she said quietly. She pulled up an image of the 12-year-old who had held up the collapsing shelter. This is what she looked like during the battle. Her body changed dramatically to save lives. The image showed a child whose muscles had grown unnaturally large, whose bone structure had shifted to bear impossible weight. It was frightening. "And this is her yesterday," continued. A new image appeared, looked like a normal 12-year-old girl. "The children are recovering faster than adults. Their bodies are letting go of the changes because they don't need them anymore." Hope flickered in some faces, but others remained skeptical. A young counselor from the species stood. How do we know this isn't temporary? How do we know that humanity won't face another threat and evolve again? You've proven you have the power to become unstoppable. Why should we trust that you'll choose to remain weak? Captain, who had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after the war, spoke up. Because we're not choosing to remain weak. We're choosing to remain human. There's a difference. He walked to the center of the chamber. We've learned something about ourselves these past months. We have incredible potential for adaptation and survival, but we also have something the original predecessors apparently lost. We have wisdom. We have choice. We can decide what we want to be. Ambassador joined him. Earth's government has made a decision. We're implementing genetic safeguards across all human populations. Voluntary treatments that will make it harder for the adaptive sequences to activate. We're choosing to limit our own power. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The ancient species looked shocked. You would cripple your own survival ability, an elder counselor asked. No, replied. We're ensuring that adaptations only activate under true existential threats, not minor dangers. We're making sure we stay human unless there's absolutely no other choice. Because we've seen what happens when evolution runs unchecked. We've become things that frightened even ourselves. Stood again. This is unprecedented. The predecessors never attempted to limit themselves. They believed absolute survival was worth any cost, but you are choosing to be vulnerable, to risk death rather than become monsters. Yes, said firmly. Because survival without humanity isn't survival, it's just existence. The chamber fell silent. The weight of the moment was clear to everyone. Finally, High Archivist spoke. There is precedent for what you describe. The ancient records suggest that the predecessors made a similar choice 200 million years ago. They chose to reset themselves, to become something simpler and more human. They chose to forget rather than become gods of evolution. Perhaps you are proving worthy of their legacy by making the same choice they did. A vote was called. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, or should they be quarantined until their genetic situation was better understood? The young species voted mostly in favor of humanity. They saw brave defenders who had won a war they didn't start. The ancient species were split. Some, like the voted in favor. Others abstained, still uncertain. When the final tally was counted, humanity was accepted by a margin of 39-8. As the chamber erupted in cautious applause, approached the human delegation. You have made a wise choice, but know that the galaxy will be watching. If you face another existential threat, if your adaptations activate again, there will be those who argue for your immediate destruction. We understand, replied, and we accept that burden. We'll work to ensure we never need to evolve again. We'll be protectors, not threats. Studied them with his ancient eyes. Perhaps that is the true legacy of the predecessors. Not the power to survive anything, but the wisdom to know when not to use that power. They failed to learn that lesson in time. I hope you succeed where they failed. 6 months later, walked through the rebuilt streets of Horizon's Gate with her students. The colony had been damaged but not destroyed. Humans and several alien species worked together to reconstruct what had been lost. Ran up to her, looking entirely like a normal child again. Teacher, look, they brought us new trees for the garden. Smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. Her own adaptations had faded almost completely. She could still feel them, dormant in her DNA, waiting. But they felt distant now, like a tool locked away for emergencies. Commander visited the colony, now serving as a liaison between Earth's military and the Galactic Council peacekeeping forces. He found at the school. How are you adjusting? He asked. Better each day, she admitted. Sometimes I miss the strength, the speed, the feeling of being invincible, but then I remember what it cost us, the fear in people's eyes, the loss of our own humanity. Do you think we made the right choice? limiting ourselves. Watch the children playing. Human children and alien children together, learning and growing without fear. Yes, because this is what the predecessors wanted when they reset themselves. A chance to live without being weapons, to be people, not evolutionary forces. They gave up godhood to find this. We should honor that sacrifice. On Earth, Doctor and Doctor published their final report on the predecessor legacy. The genetic safeguards were in place. Humanity's adaptive abilities were locked behind barriers that required unanimous global consent to remove. It would take a true extinction-level threat to activate them again. "Do you think it will be enough?" asked. Looked at the data one last time. I think the predecessors built in one final gift. They made sure their inheritors would have a choice. They could have programmed automatic evolution. Instead, they programmed wisdom, the ability to know when to adapt and when to accept limitation. Admiral stood on the bridge of a new Earth vessel, not a warship but an exploration ship. Humanity was returning to what they did before the war, seeking knowledge, not conquest, building relationships, not empires. She received a message from Elder. "Admiral, the Council has a request. We have anomalies in our own genetic code, ancient damage from the predecessor war. Your doctor has offered to help us study them. Would you permit an exchange of scientists?" Smiled, "We would be honored." The galaxy was learning to trust humanity, and humanity was learning to trust itself. At the council station, Ambassador gave a speech to commemorate the first anniversary of humanity's acceptance. "We are the children of the predecessors, but we are not them. They were evolution incarnate. We choose to be human. They were power without control. We are control with power, and we dedicate ourselves not to surviving at any cost, but to living with purpose." As he spoke, sat in the audience with and the other children from Horizon's Gate. They looked like ordinary children now, but they knew the truth. They carried the potential for something extraordinary, and they had chosen to keep it locked away. Leaned over and whispered, "Do you think we'll ever need to become like that again?" Thought carefully before answering. "I hope not. But if we do, if the galaxy faces a threat so terrible that nothing else will save it, then we'll make that choice. Together, consciously. Not because we're forced to evolve, but because we choose to protect others." "Like heroes?" asked. "Like humans," corrected gently. "The best kind of humans. The kind who have the power to be gods but choose to be people instead." Across the galaxy, humanity took its place among the stars. Not as conquerors or threats, but as partners and protectors. The legacy of the predecessors lived on, not in unchecked evolution, but in the wisdom to choose when to use power and when to set it aside. And in the end, that choice, that single moment of deciding to remain human despite having the power to become something more, was the greatest inheritance the predecessors could have left behind. The hidden truth was finally understood. Humanity's greatest strength was not their ability to evolve into anything. It was their ability to choose what they wanted to be. And they chose to be human.